Question is, do you think that we could see another surprise attack from Hamas in Israel? Or is it too much security and high alert and that would never happen?
I don't think we're going to see an attack in the near future that replicates what happened on October 7th. Not from Hamas. I think if Hezbollah gets involved, what they're going to do is going to shock the world. It's going to take what Hamas did on October 7th and magnify it by several orders of magnitude. And the absolute destruction and defeat of the Israeli Defense Force along its northern border with Lebanon will blow everybody's mind. Hezbollah has been preparing for this fight for decades. They know the Israelis very well. They know the area very well. Israel has put so many of its resources into Gaza. There's not really much left that can go up north. Hezbollah has 80, 90, 100,000 fighters, many of whom are combat hardened from the fighting in Syria. These guys are really, really good. They have a plan. And I think that's where we could see the surprise if this thing escalates. Hamas's surprise right now is just its resilience, its ability to survive everything. I think it's underappreciated in the world what Hamas is doing right now to continue this fight. It's remarkable, logistically, operationally, tactically. But it's not getting the credit on October 7th because it was all in our face. We're like, wow, look what Hamas did. But because everything that Hamas is doing right now is underground, literally, and beyond sight, we don't understand what they're doing. But anybody who has a modicum of appreciation for the complexity of this operation has to be in awe with what Hamas is pulling off militarily right now, because it is as sophisticated as the day is long.
We're seeing a lot of headlines, though, and as well as a lot of Hamas being dragged out in front of the cameras, pretty much stripped down, being searched. I mean, is that just Israel's propaganda machine running in high drive? And to add to that, if Hezbollah does come in, I mean, what kind of power do they have? And are they going to corner the Israelis? Are they going to fight it in Gaza? Or are they going to fight it in Israeli soil? Or where are they going to fight it?
Well, first of all, the bodies you see dragged before the camera are civilians. The Israelis themselves acknowledge that 80 to 85% of the men that they stripped down were civilians. They weren't Hamas. And the Israeli definition of Hamas is very liberal, meaning anybody who is doing anything that could potentially be seen as supporting the Hamas war effort is now Hamas. What you're not seeing there is the Al-Qassam Brigade. You're not seeing the Al-Quds Brigade. You're not seeing the hardline fighters. They don't surrender. I mean, they might get shot up, knocked out, and captured, but we're not seeing hardcore Hamas fighters surrender. They're underground executing a plan that they've been, that they've prepared for many years. So this, again, is just Israeli propaganda. And the Israelis have to do this. Let's understand what's happening right now in Israel. Not only is the Israeli public waking up to the fact that they're not winning in Gaza. I mean, the Golani Brigade's just getting slapped around like a little kid by Hamas. And that's their elite infantry unit, and they're just getting beat up, bad, pummeled. But the Israelis are also waking up to that everything the government has told them about October 7th was a lie. There's no beheaded babies. There's no burned babies. There's no rape. There's none of this. None of this happened. You might find one or two isolated cases, but the concept of widespread mayhem, rape, murder, 1,200 Israelis slaughtered by the evil Hamas. Well, first of all, fully a third of those were soldiers killed in battle. Now we take the remaining number, and it's turned out the Israelis themselves have said, we probably killed the vast majority of them, but we're not going to have an investigation because that would just be too damaging to the psychology of Israel to understand what we did on that day. What they did on that day is kill everybody because they were panicked. Don't ever believe that Hamas slaughtered all those people the rave, because even the survivors of the rave were saying, no, 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 no. There was a crossfire. The Israeli police were just shooting us as we ran to them. They were killing us. Apache helicopters were in the air. The pilots saying, we can't discriminate, but we're just shooting everybody. The worst one was when where a very large number of people died were in the kibbutzes themselves, holed up in their homes. And the Israeli armor came in, and rather than negotiate or wait, they just blew up all the homes, burning the Israelis that were there alive. The Israeli Defense Forces now admitted just the vast majority of the people killed. I'm not saying Hamas didn't kill anybody. Of course they did. But the idea that Hamas went in and slaughtered 1,200 innocent Israeli civilians, no, not even close. The Hamas carried out a well-planned and well-executed military operation, an assault against a fortified position. And every kibbutz on the Gaza defense belt is a fortified position. How do we know? Because some of them actually mobilized their security units and held off the Hamas attackers, inflicting serious casualties on Hamas. So that's what Hamas was trying to avoid. So they avoid it through, a very aggressive assault, violence on contact. You don't sit there and go, do we shoot or not shoot? You're coming into a fortified position that, if given the opportunity to mobilize and prepare, can defeat you. So it's violence through the assault. That's what Hamas did. A lot of people died. Some of them were innocent civilians. But you say innocent civilian, there's civilians in a kibbutz that has been fortified. So, everybody keeps going, Hamas uses human shields. Well, by definition, if you fortify a town, everybody in that town that's not a soldier or an armed defender is a human shield. So Israel did the same thing. Nobody's hands are clean on this. But the bottom line is, the whole narrative that Israel painted about October 7th is turning out to be a absolute giant lie. And the Israeli public is waking up to this. So in order to divert their attention from this, the IDF is carrying out these massive, propaganda things to generate hatred in the hearts and minds of the Israeli public, who are also being told very difficult things, such as the Hamas actually treated the hostages like humans, treated them as well as the conditions could prevail. That if a hostage died, they died because of Israeli bombs, not because of what Hamas did to them. Meanwhile, the Palestinians being released from Israeli prison are talking about rape, torture, and ongoing brutalization. So the Israeli public is waking up to this reality that they suck as a nation. And that's the reality of modern day Israel. They suck. They're not good people. They don't have a good cause. They're racist as hell. They believe in the supremacy of Jews over everybody. And they're willing to, demean, to dehumanize the Arab men to make themselves feel better about their own failings. That's what's going on. This strategic defeat of Israel isn't just military. It isn't just economic. It's the defeat of the mindset of Zionism. It's the absolute delegitimization of political Zionism. And when that gets defeated, and it's happening or already happened, that's the end of Israel as we know it. That doesn't mean Israel ceases to exist, but what it means is that politicians like Benjamin Netanyahu and his right-wing coalition will never again have a chance to rule, that somebody's going to have to come in and take the reins and work with the international community so that, instead of a one-state solution where the Jews are overwhelmed by, the majority of Muslims and Christians that live in Palestine, that there will be a two-state solution where the concept of a Jewish separate state still exists, because that's becoming more difficult to defend. The concept of a separate Jewish state, it's becoming more difficult to defend. And the longer this goes on, the harder it is going to be able to implement something like that.
Scott, I'm finding it really hard to believe that a lot of people that are watching this program today, can actually go out and support what's going on with Israel and the killing of many civilians here. Where I struggle is the odd time we see in the comment section people saying, Oh, if you don't go with the Israeli, we'll call it their strategy or their narrative, you're called a supporter of a terrorist organization. I mean, the average person, if they just turn on their TV or get on X for an hour and see some of these images, which I have never actually seen up until X really started to allow it to come out there. I just catch my breath when I see some of the images. So why is it that some people just cannot grasp the concept that what is happening there? The international community is no longer behind them anymore. They have a big brother with the veto power. Why can't the average person sorry, I shouldn't say the average person. Why is there now a small minority of people that still will not say, what or condemn what Israel is doing? I'm trying to get the best word it the best way I can.
Well, I mean, there's a couple things here. One is just a matter of perception. Especially in the post 9/11, and I mean, for somebody my age and probably your age too, 9/11 just seems like yesterday. It wasn't that long ago. But the fact is, it's been more than 2 decades. And that's like, when we talk about the civil rights movement in America in the 1960s, trying to remind people that just 2 decades ago, the Second World War was raging. You're like, wow, it was only 20 years? Yeah, 1945, 1965, just 20 years. 2001, here we are coming up on 2024. It's been more than 2 decades. And during that time, we have been inundated with the notion that terrorists are evil. And so when you put that label terrorist organization on something, automatically all debate is done. They are evil, an inherent evil. And because we've had 2 decades of a global war against terrorism, we are automatically programmed to say terrorist, bad, fight. Meanwhile, during that same time period, the United States has been hijacked by a pro-Israeli lobby that has bought not only the Congress, but to be honest, heavily influences the messaging from mainstream media, so that you can't be critical of Israel. Israel has been likened to being just like America. Fact is, it's America and Israel. I mean, come on, we allow American citizens of Jewish origin to go to Israel and serve in their military, to fight. There's many Americans right now fighting in Gaza wearing the Israeli uniform. Several Americans were taken hostage, but I point out that they're not Americans. They're Israelis. They went to Israel on an Israeli passport. They just carry the American passport as a matter of convenience, but they identify as Israeli. And so when they're taken hostage, they can't suddenly go, oh, no, I'm an American. No, you're an Israeli. And I'm sorry, you made that choice. But the fact is, so many people for the past 2 decades, and even the decades leading up to that, have been pre-programmed to accept at face value anything negative about anything labeled as terrorist, and accept without question all the positive virtues of the anti-terror organization, Israel. That's, Israel's the ultimate anti-terror organization. They're the good guys. We see that with Iran, where Israel can say anything they want about Iran, and most Americans go, oh, yeah. Because Israel said it, it has to be true. Now, everything they say about Iran is a lie. Everything they say about Hamas is a lie. Literally. I mean, look at some of these talking points that go out there, just not just to make the point. What do the Israelis say? The second you mention Hamas, their leadership's a bunch of billionaires. You know that the guy sitting in Qatar, he's worth $3 billion. He's worth $5 billion. They're worth $11 billion. And you're like, wow, that's a lot of money. And you got those poor Palestinian refugees that don't get anything. This is horrible. Except it's not true. Because one of the first things I, as an intelligence officer, go, well, where's that data come from? Who's coming up with this data? And so you work your way down the information chain, and you get a source document, 2014, where you have an Israeli, he's a reserve colonel. He's teaching at Western Galilee University in Israel. And he says that the Hamas guys are billionaires. But what is this source? Arab countries say this. Which Arab countries? He doesn't say. Arab leaders. Which Arab leaders? He doesn't say. He made it up. And now we have the U.S. Treasury Department coming out and saying they're billion, but ask the Treasury Department to give you the financials. They can't. It all comes back to this original piece of disinformation. The same thing about, fuel. You can't give them Palestinians fuel because Hamas will seize it and they'll use it in their rockets. Hey, idiots. And I'm sorry to call you people idiots, but that's not how rockets work. You don't use gasoline or diesel. It doesn't. No, the fuel used by Hamas is a mixture of sugar and fertilizer. The sugar is the fuel. The fertilizer is the oxidizer. It's mixed up. It's a volatile thing. I wouldn't want to be mixing it, but there ain't no gasoline involved. So the notion that you have to deny the Palestinians gasoline or diesel because they'll turn it into rocket fuel is just a straight up lie. Well, they dug up their water pipes that the European Union put in, $100 million up water pipes, and that's why they don't have any water. Don't blame Israel. They dug up the water pipes. No, they dug up the water pipes that Israel put in to support the illegal settlements that were not connected to the Gaza water infrastructure whatsoever. They dug those up and they converted them into the rockets, which they filled with the sugar and fertilizer fuel, and they fire off. But just about everything Israel says about Hamas is a lie, except that Benjamin Netanyahu funded them, supported the funding of them to use Hamas as a political tool against Fatah, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the Palestinian Authority, to keep the Palestinians permanently divided. Hamas is not a terrorist organization today. They used to be. They used to exclusively rely upon terror. Hamas won an election. Imagine that. They're actually more democratic than many nations in the Middle East. They won an election. They have the support of the Palestinian people in Gaza. Fact is, they have the support of all the Palestinian people, but their election was overturned under pressure by the collective West, by the Arab nations, by the Palestinian Authority, because Hamas not just won the election in Gaza, they won it in the West Bank as well. The Speaker of the Parliament was a Hamas guy, and the Palestinian Authority said, no, we can't have that. So they overturned it. There was a civil war, and now Hamas controls Gaza, Fatah controls West Bank. But we don't respect the reality of Hamas, and I've said this a long time. You can't solve a problem that you don't first properly define, because if you haven't defined the problem properly, whatever you're coming up with a solution isn't answering the problem. And so when you call Hamas a terrorist organization, right off the bat, you've ensured that whatever solution you come up with isn't going to solve anything, because Hamas isn't a terrorist organization. Hamas is a legitimate political party that is viewed by the majority of Palestinians in Gaza, and indeed increasingly many Palestinians in the West Bank, as the best representative of the Palestinian people. When was the last time the Palestinian Authority articulated aggressively in favor of a Palestinian state? They gave up on that a long time ago. Instead, they're trying to hold on to whatever political power they have by serving as the de facto extension of Israeli security. The Palestinian Authority, it turns in Hamas. They turn in the resistance because they want to maintain good relations with the Israelis, who keep money flowing in the direction of Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority. Hamas, on the other hand, yeah, they get funding. Are some of their leaders living in extravagant? Look, let me put it this way. I could show you my bank account, Alex, and it ain't very impressive. And it wasn't impressive when I was invited to Dubai by the United Arab Emirates government to give a presentation. So poor little old Scott Ritter is flown there because they're paying for it, business class. Ooh, I must be rich. I'm flying business class. And then when I land there, they had a limo pick me up. I must be really rich. I'm driving in a limo with a chauffeur. And they take me to the best hotel in Dubai, and they put me in the best suite because I was sort of an honored guest at that time. So anybody taking a picture of me that night would have seen me lounging around in a gold-plated hot tub. All right. And they would say, Scott Ritter's a billionaire. Hell no. I made nothing. I mean, literally, I was almost bankrupt when this was happening. But when you go to the Middle East and you are the guests of a a nation like Qatar, one of the wealthiest nations there, they aren't going to let you languish in some sort of clapboard trailer park. You are the guests of them. You are political. They're going to put you up at a 5-star hotel, but you ain't footing that bill. The Qatari government is, because they own everything. It really doesn't cost them anything. They own it. So they just say, yeah, this is your hotel. Live here. We'll give you a driver. Oh, you need to fly somewhere? We have a business jet at your disposal with a pilot and a crew. And so, and if you're going to sit in front of the world, you can't walk around looking like Scott Ritter, guys. We're going to send you out and you're going to buy a suit and you're going to look good. So they look good. They do have some money. I'm not going to deny that. They probably, you could call them millionaires maybe, but you can't call them billionaires. That's stupid. That's just a flagrant lie. But this is all Israel could do. They can't tell the truth about Hamas, because the moment you start telling the truth about Hamas, you have to acknowledge the legitimacy of Hamas. And that's the last thing anybody wants to do.
So over the holidays here in the next couple of weeks, is there going to be a turning point? Do we think there's going to be some diplomatic resolutions here where there will be a so-called ceasefire, or are we just going to continue to see X riddled with flattened buildings, crucified children, the ethnic cleansing of this area? Is that going to continue, or are we going to see a turning point, something big happen where somebody says, okay, enough is enough, let's go?
Well, the rumor is that the Biden administration has already told Netanyahu that this current phase of the military operation has to be finished by the end of this year. Now, it's a rumor. I haven't seen anything, but you just take a look at the body language of Biden and the words coming out from Biden. He's fed up with Netanyahu. So I don't think that this phase, this absolute flagrant violation of international law, this genocidal behavior by Israel lasts into the new year. I think that at some point in time, the United States has suffered such egregious diplomatic harm. At a time when we were trying to rally the global South to our cause. Remember, again, I bring up Biden at the G20, trying to create an economic alternative to the Belts and Roads Initiative of China. That was the whole thing of the India Middle East Economic Corridor, was to have this infrastructure development that takes place as a competition to China. I mean, it's pretty funny because the trains that they were going to rely upon in the United Arab Emirates were built by China. The railroad that Saudi Arabia was going to provide was built by China, and any upgrades that were going to undo it, China would do. The Haifa port, China sort of did that one. The Greek port, China did. So you're trying to compete with the China, but you're basically falling in on Chinese infrastructure anyways. It just shows you the stupidity of the United States as we put these policies together. But that's the direction we wanted to go. We needed the global South to support us. We've lost the global South. We're losing the war. Australia even voted in favor of the United Nations 377 resolution. We're starting to see Europe strip away one by one until we are alone. And at that point in time, we're going to look in the mirror and say, why are we alone? Israel. What does Israel bring to the table? Not a damn thing. Not a damn thing. Israel's a giant weight around our neck, taking us to the bottom of the ocean. So we're going to cut ourselves free of that chain after January 1st. And you're going to see the United States start doing what it should have done all along, leveraging the absolute control we have over Israel. Israel doesn't survive without us, can't survive without us. We provide all of their military capabilities. We sustain their economy in a number of ways, including direct infusion of money. And we facilitate their political empowerment here at home by not treating AIPAC as a foreign agent, meaning that normally when a lobby articulates on behalf of a foreign government, you have to register as a foreign agent, not AIPAC, because Israel's not foreign. They're just like us. I mean, they're Jewish, but man, half of them are American anyway, so it doesn't matter, does it? Israel isn't just like us. Israel's not our friend. I remind everybody of that reality. Just remember, in 1967, Israel attacked the USS Liberty, slaughtering American sailors. In 1982, Israeli tanks threatened U.S. Marines. And as a U.S. Marine, I take umbrage at that. They're not our friends. They're not our allies. Jonathan Pollard spied against the United States on behalf of Israel, taking the crown jewels, that is, a document that lists all of our signal intelligence capabilities, turned it over to the Israelis, who then gave it to the Soviet Union to try and get more Jews out of the Soviet Union